Hey guys, welcome to the Joshly channel.
I'm JoJo.
I'm Ashley, and today's video is going to be on a difficult topic because if some of you don't know, this month is
Mental Health Awareness Month.
So today's topic is depression, specifically on JoJo's experience with depression. We are going to try to keep this as honest and raw,
as educational as I can make it.
Yeah.
But
while also being an open conversation.
Well, I was gonna say, just remember, I am not a licensed therapist or psychologist. So what I'm telling you is from my own personal experience, or things that I've learned from group therapy, or things that I've learned with my therapist. So just keep that in mind. You know, everyone is different. Everybody goes through different things. Not everybody is the same. Some things may work for you, may not work for me. Some things may work for me, may not work for you.
Also, we are actually hoping that this video may be a starting point for others, whether you feel like you're suffering but don't know how to reach out to others, whether you are a friend of somebody who you feel like, hey, like, something's different with this person, but I don't know how to reach out to them. Or even, you know, we are here, both JoJo and myself are more than willing to, let's say, be ears to those who are willing to ask questions, because that's what this month is truly about, is just having those open conversations that are truly hard to have, but with those who are finally willing to open up and talk or listen.
Let's begin.
I think what we should first start with is, how would you yourself explain the difference between being sad and being depressed?
That is a hard one. For myself, if I'm feeling sad, I know it's more of my heart is heavy kind of thing, emotional wise. If I'm depressed, it's more my mental. My brain is telling me one thing, my heart's doing another thing. I have a hard time functioning day to day. It's kind of hard to differentiate after having it for so many years. You kind of lose touch of reality when reality hits. You kind of really do lose touch of your own reality. It's really hard to know the difference between when you're sad and when you're depressed, because it tends to start blending in together. And that's kind of what has happened to me over the years, because I've had it for so long. But I know for me, when I'm sad, but I'm not like, get away from me sad, or I don't want to do anything sad, you know. I'm sad, I can still do stuff, but just not to the extreme. When I'm depressed, it's like I'm just a couch potato, or I don't want to get up in the morning, I want to just lie in bed. When I'm sad, I watch certain shows that help, because sometimes my sadness leads into my depression a lot. I shouldn't say sometimes, I should say a lot. But everybody's different.
I also, so besides the shows, because I definitely agree with that, when I notice that she is beginning to watch certain shows, it's like hey, like, this might be a red flag, we should check in with each other. Not that we don't already check in, but it's like, okay, like, we really have to, like, force that conversation, like, really think about what's going on, what isn't being said or brought up. But also, I think for me, being the wife of somebody who is clinically depressed, when her mood, or let's say her mood swings... Is that
even the right word, clinically depressed?
Well, because you've been diagnosed.
Right.
So it's...
Oh, okay.
Okay. From my understanding, anyway. We could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Well, I've just been diagnosed with depression.
Yes. When it comes to her mood swings, that is one of my major red signs of, like, okay, like, this is no longer an argument or a disagreement. This is something that she is, how do I put it? Like, not overreacting, because that's always the wrong word to use, but it's almost, like, that's how it feels. So when I start to feel like perhaps either one of us is overreacting, then it's another conversation that needs to be had.
Oh, I got a good example. Have you ever seen Inside Out? So, you know how they have a character named Sadness? You know how she's always sad, right? She always talks like, she's sad, that's how she is. But remember the part where Joy had to drag her because she wouldn't get up from the floor? That, to me, is a sign of depression. Like, she went from sad to being depressed because she felt like a failure.
And that's more...
That's just how I saw it.
A chemical imbalance in our brain.
Yeah, but that's how, when they made Inside Out, and they built the character Sadness, and I watched the movie, that's how I kind of... Because if you kind of look at it too, like, if you look at Riley, how she wanted to run away, she felt lonely, she felt abandoned, and that was because Sadness had kind of, her emotions had taken over. And that's yes, that's sad, but that's also,
Well, okay, so...
But that's just me. That's how I saw it, because I related to it so much.
But, okay, so that is something I will put right out there. A lot of people tend to confuse sadness with depression. Now, we are not saying that they don't tend to be similar. However, they are massively different.
The thing is, everybody is different. Everybody's sadness level is different. Everybody's depression levels are different. So if someone tells you they're depressed, they're probably depressed. You can't tell them that they're not depressed.
But at the same time, people shouldn't be taking that lightly. Like, if you think you are depressed, then try to talk to somebody. When was the first time you realized that you were depressed and not just sad?
8th grade of middle school. That's when I realized there was a big difference between... I thought my entire life, I thought I was just sad. Like, like, there was a lot of moments I'm sad, but came 8th grade, that's actually when my parents told me we were moving, like we were moving overseas, and my dad had already left, because of his job. So it was just my mom and I. And I think that's when it really hit me that I'm no longer just sad. Like, I'm depressed because now I have to start over. I have to get new friends. Obviously, me telling you this, you're probably like, oh, it's just sad. Kids get sad, because when you have to move, you're not with your friends anymore. You have to make new friends, new school, new environment. You're just sad. Okay, yes, I get it. Like, I was just sad, but it came down to the time where I realized, it's not just I'm moving because, it wasn't my choice to move. My parents moved, and my mom wanted us to stay together. I get it, because, she wanted us to stay together as a family, but at the same time, I was trying to figure out my own life situation, because I didn't know where I was in life, and all of a sudden I'm being uprooted to go somewhere new. It was hard, and I realized the way I was acting out and the things that I was doing was not a sign of sadness, but it was a sign of me trying to get out of it because I was depressed. Because I didn't know how to
properly
not relay it, but like handle the situation. It was more of like a cry for help kind of thing, because that's actually when I started cutting myself. And that's something that really annoys me when some people say, oh, you cut yourself? You do it for attention?
Sorry.
And the thing is, it's hard for you not to do the eye roll because, you know, it's not for attention. You know, some people don't realize that some people do it because it's their way of exerting pain in a different way. So yeah, that's kind of when I started doing that, you know, cutting myself. But, you know, people did used to tell me, like, oh, you're doing it for, like, are you doing it for attention? Like, oh, you're just trying to, and here's the funny part, too. I went to a church that my dad belonged to, that I actually grew up in, and, you know, I became friends with a group of people, and I did express my feelings to those people, and this is where it gets really hard for me, because as a Christian, we're taught to love each other, and we're taught to understand each other and be there for each other, you know, to kind of help each other, guide each other, you know, take the right path kind of thing, even when we stray. But not pointing fingers, not naming names, you know, but it just, I didn't get that. I did not get that. And I did not realize about that church or those group of friends until I moved. And I came back every summer. And by the time I hit senior year of high school, I went, wow, what was I thinking? Like, this is just not, we're not an uplifting group of people, you know? We're, oh, we have to save face kind of people. And I think, honestly, it was tough for my parents, because my dad was an elder, and my mom was Sunday school teacher, and it was hard for them because, yeah, they cared about, you know, their, what's that word? They cared about their status in church, but at the same time, like, they wanted to be there for me. They tried really hard to be there for me without, you know, affecting their church status. So, I mean, I think starting 8th grade is when I kind of stopped. I, like, slowly stopped going to church. Like, there were a couple times that I'd miss church and stuff because I just felt so uncomfortable. And then senior year of high school, I was like, oh, that's why, you know? Because I actually, when we moved overseas, I went to a church that was way different. Completely different. You know, we were a small church, but, you know, we were so open arms, welcoming. We were such great listeners, you know, uplifting each other all the time. And, like, you know, I mean, I was so comfortable in that church that I led worship, you know, and
that was in high school.
Yeah, and that was in high school. And I had a like, he was kind of like the teacher for all the teenagers. He was great. Like, I could talk to him about stuff, you know. I made close friends with people, you know, who went to my high school. Actually, you know what? I would say that I realized senior year of high school, but, like, I started realizing 8th grade of middle school, but I kind of, and then senior year of high school, I was like, oh, okay. Like, that's what it was. And I just kind of plowed over it until high school. ended.
So the idea started coming to you in 8th grade, but senior year is when it like really clicked that like, okay, you're not just sad, you're depressed.
Yeah, because feeling abandoned, feeling left out, feeling lost,
All the
feeling sad, feeling angry, feeling just all of that, just all mushed together. Senior year of high school, I was definitely depressed.
So when did you officially start either talking to somebody or going to see a therapist, and when were you officially told?
Okay, so I started talking to a therapist freshman year of high school. He's not really a therapist, more like a counselor, like a school counselor. Don't get me wrong, school counselors are wonderful if you get a really good one. Okay, I, however, did not. But we did talk about a lot of stuff. I had to see him because we moved. You know, I was new to the school, and he was kind of my school counselor for all 4 years of my high school. I went to an international school, so the things that they did were similar to American school, but very different as well. But that's when I started talking to somebody about it. And then freshman year of college is when, like, I was self-diagnosing myself throughout, you know, almost my whole life. And then freshman year of college is when I saw a therapist, and she said, "Hey, you're depressed." And I went, "Huh, yeah, I thought so."
Okay. This kind of goes back to the initial sad versus depressed thing, but can you recall your earliest memory of feeling sad, and then your earliest memory, which kind of touched based, your earliest memory of feeling depressed? So like the distinct two.
All right. I can't really give you that well of detail, because my brain doesn't work that way. I tend to try to erase all my past. Not block, erase. I really try to erase all the past because I try to work through it. That way I can let it go. So a lot of that stuff I don't quite remember, but the one thing I do remember is I was sad when my parents told me we had to move. That I was sad because, I had built a good group of friends. I had a best friend at church, and she's not included in the group of people from church. I have to point that out because it's very important to me. I would say that's when I was sad, was when my parents told me we have to move. When I was depressed, my earliest memory of depression was probably, I don't know. I honestly don't remember.
Because you were saying earlier that you kind of feel like that all started when you had to move. So I want to clarify something. When you were told that you were going to have to move, that was a sad feeling.
That was a sad feeling.
But when you actually had to move, like the process of moving, is that when you started feeling like, okay, this could be something more than just being sad? Or did that happen a little bit after?
Yes and no. I think it was more like when we already got there and I already started school. I think that's probably... But like I said, I don't...
It kind of all blends together.
I don't... Yeah, because having it for so many years, I've learned to just try to let things go, because I can't always be holding on to the same stuff all the time.
And it's not like there's anybody to blame either.
Exactly. Because life goes on, and I have to keep reminding myself that, remember that, and yeah.
So, what would be your suggestion or opinion to give someone who is seeking help, trying to help someone else? Like who they possibly think may or may not have depression.
First off, don't assume that the person you are trying to help has depression. Okay? Because it's not nice. I mean, it's not nice, but it's not nice to assume that, because it is a very serious mental health thing. Secondly, please don't say, "Are you okay?" Oof. I do not like, "Are you okay?"
Well, are you saying, like, don't ask at all, or are you saying don't ask if you don't truly
yes
intend?
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Don't ask, "Are you okay?" if you are not truly intending on continuing after "Are you okay?" Because for someone who is depressed, we don't like to hear the words, well, I don't like to hear the words, "Are you okay?" Because I've had so many experiences where people will ask me, "Are you okay?" And I say, "You know what? I'm not." "Oh, okay." Walks away.
I think a lot of people have the same experience, so I have to agree, especially as your wife and as somebody, like, you know, we've all had this experience, because it's human nature to ask that question, but we truly have to push ourselves if the answer is no, I'm not okay, or even a variation of that. Push yourself to continue asking questions. Push yourself.
No. You don't ask questions. Well, I mean, yes, you do.
Well, so when I say push yourself to ask questions, ask them, like, okay, how can I help you? If they say, just sit here with me, sit there with them. Don't say anything. If they say, like, you know, I don't know if you can help, which honestly, sometimes there really are moments where they don't know what can help them, and that's okay. If they give you that answer, just sit there with them. Let them know, hey, I'm
still here for you.
I care. That will go a long way.
Yeah.
I'm just slightly
You had
passionate.
to get that out of your chest,
yeah.
huh? It was there. Yeah. So, but that's why, because she gets mad when people do that to me, because it
happens a lot.
It happens so much with me. Like, people don't realize, you know, they look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're so happy-go-lucky. Like, how do you have this?" Okay, you know what? Look at somebody who's been depressed for maybe 2 years and compare it to someone who's been depressed for over 20 years.
And comparing is generally not okay, but for this specific example...
Yeah, I'm just trying to show you, like, someone who's dealing with it for 20 years, you know, we've crawled through so many, you know, mines and obstacles and all that stuff just to overcome certain things that we no longer want to do that anymore. We don't want to overcome those things anymore. So, you know, after all those hardships, after all those, you know, like, boundaries being broken, you know, things like that, we're just kind of done. Like, if I'm gonna be happy-go-lucky with you, it's probably because I'm not comfortable with telling you how I feel. I'm not comfortable being open with you because I don't feel like you would possibly be there for me. Because I'm the type where it's like, okay, now my wall's up, and you're just gonna get this side of me, and you'll never get this side of me. And that's something that I learned in group therapy, is that, you know, there are many layers of circles of friendship, and you have to figure out which friend would fit in each circle. Your outer layer are your acquaintances, you know, and your very middle circle, the smallest one, is the friend or friends. Remember, you can have more than one friend or friends that you feel that you can absolutely, be honest with, be open with, be,
wholefully raw with.
yeah, and you won't feel judged or, being taken for granted. That's something to keep in mind. Please do not ask, "Are you okay?" if you're not intending on, being there for them, because it does play a very big part in someone with depression. It does mess with their brain, and it does not help emotionally or mentally for them. So, keep that in mind. In that perspective, if you are dealt with something like this, my best answer from my point of view would be to, depending on who you're with. So, like for me, if I'm feeling depressed, I like to go out. I like to go do stuff. I like to be in the moment more than not. So I like to go walk around, see people, be around family, be around friends, because it keeps my mind occupied, and it helps me be more. It gives me more. What's the word that makes you happy? What's the word that makes
endorphins?
There, it gives you endorphins, and endorphins does help. So a lot of the times therapists will tell you, well, why don't you try exercising? Because exercising does build your endorphins, which in turn will help with, a lot of that stuff.
But it doesn't help.
But it doesn't, it doesn't always.
Some as much as it does others.
So for me, it's more, being around family, being around friends, being, just being outside, doing stuff. But that's just how I am. So if someone's like me, you could be like, hey, want to go grab lunch? I found this like really cool place. You want to go check out with me? Or
those who really know you, hey, you want to go walk around the mall? Not shopping,
no.
not let's go do something. Let's go walk around. Something.
Or hey, like I found this really cool like Chinese place you want to go check out. Or hey, I found this really cool taco place you want to go check out.
Or food in general.
Food, yeah. For me, it's food. Now another thing you have to remember, you tend to not want you don't want to exert your depression towards a certain thing and then always think that's the way out, because then it becomes an addiction.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say. Like, it doesn't come easy for you.
Yeah.
To push yourself to go out and do these things. But that would be my suggestion. Just help. Like, if you're trying to help somebody, help them help themselves. Figure out what
that's
helps
a good one.
them.
Help them help themselves.
Figure out what causes them to break into a smile or laughter. Figure out, what makes them feel okay rather than not so okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were the suggestions? Don't ask, are you okay? Without truly wanting to be there for somebody.
If it's someone close to you, maybe take them to go do something that they like to go do. Suggest it.
Number 3 would be help them help themselves. So whether that's helping them figure out what makes them happy, helping them just coping through the day, etc. What else was there?
I mean, overall, in general, just be there for that person.
Truly be
just there. Truly be there for them, because eventually down the line, we will remember it. And it will be, a good thing.
Do not expect anything in return.
Oh, yes.
If you are trying to help somebody with depression, they may not be able to say how thankful they are. They may not be able to express, hey, this is helping. Like, it's not fully like, hey, yeah, but somewhere deep
Yeah, it's
inside,
not going to be sudden. They're not going to just suddenly be happy.
Yeah, but
it's a process. Be patient.
Yes. Ooh, that's a good one.
Don't expect it to just, happen tomorrow.
My next question kind of like blends together with this because it's thoughts/tips for someone who doesn't know how to check in with friends who aren't sure if they have depression. So maybe they've brought it up like, I'm...
Don't say, are you depressed?
What should be?
How are you feeling?
Meaning, how are you feeling? And wait for the response and be willing to be there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, between research, therapist, your own experience, all of that, what are some of the signs that you can tell people are the signs of depression?
If you feel abandoned, if you feel lost, if you feel like you're a failure, if you feel like you've given up on life, if you feel like the only thing that's left for you to do is to remove yourself from any situation. When I say remove, I mean like remove yourself from any situation, and it will make it better. Anyways, to me, those are my signs of depression. Because over the years, in college, I actually took a psychology class. And it was funny because one of our topics was actually on depression. Apparently, this is like some research some guy did. Apparently, kids who are adopted tend to lean towards more depression because now they're feeling the loss of abandonment. They're feeling the loss of nobody loves me. I'm just piece of and you feel like you just don't belong anywhere. And when I took that class, I was like, damn, that's some real poop. Yeah. Because I related to it so much. That's why for me, I know it comes from abandonment issues, feeling lost all the time, feeling like I'm a failure all the time, feeling like if I removed myself from a situation that I would make everybody's life so much easier. And that's what I constantly deal with.
Which on your good days, do you truly feel like that's not true?
On my good days, I still feel like that, but it's kind of like back here instead of like up here. So it's kind of like, I feel lost and I still feel abandoned and I still feel like a failure, but I'm pushing forward and I'm still trying to live day to day.
Now, I don't know if I'm thinking this like as more of a don't come after me or whatever, but if somebody watching this, hearing you say that, thinks or wants to tell you like, well, why doesn't your wife or your family just tell you constantly you're not a failure or we love you or all those things that are opposite of what you're thinking, what would you tell them?
Because they would literally have to tell me every millisecond, every second, every minute, every hour, every day of my life. Because that is what's constantly going through my head.
But does that mean that we haven't told you or that...
No, they have. And that's the thing. I've heard it from you, I've heard it from my parents, I've heard it from, my friends and all that stuff. But just because you hear it, doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you're putting two and two together, Yeah. It's kind of one of the things that you have to tell yourself. You have to...
And it's not just about telling yourself that, it's...
affirmations.
Again,
I feel like
people with
affirmations.
depression have an imbalance in chemical imbalance in the brain. So even telling themselves that, it's hard to believe hearing it and what have you. Symptoms or signs.
So Ashley did research. She looked up what are the symptoms of depression. Go for it.
So I looked up what are the typical signs of depression. Now we have feeling sad or empty.
Lost.
Decreased interest or pleasure in activities.
Lost.
Appetite change with weight loss or weight gain.
That varies. That varies for people.
Well, this all varies with people.
Yeah.
You have to really understand and know that everybody is affected differently from depression.
Yes.
So some of the signs that are shown from some people may not be shown from others.
Yes.
Like you were saying, like some people, when they get to know JoJo, they think, oh, she's so happy-go-lucky.
Yes.
And, she's
fun.
Peppy.
Yes. Peppy. I ain't peppy. I'm just...
You have your moments.
Okay, yeah.
But...
That's my,
that's not what's on the inside.
That's my, what do you call it? That's my coping mechanism. What else?
We have decreased or increased sleeping.
I have that. I only sleep 5 hours a day. Oh, you know what? I've had that since I was a kid.
That's what I was going to say. You and I have the opposite ends of this. You sleep less, I sleep more.
I was saying it.
Anyway.
I was saying it.
Fatigue or loss of energy.
Oh, I don't have that. But you do. But we'll cover that next
in another
month.
video. Feeling worthless or guilty.
Yes!
This is a big thing.
Yes.
Now,
yes. Yes.
I will say
Yes.
you have to...
Yes.
You have to be sensitive and understanding when someone with depression is telling you they feel some version of worthless or guilty, or like it's their fault in some way or another. Like, as JoJo was saying before, oftentimes we will express this no matter what people say. This is something that our brains are telling us it's our fault.
Feeling like you're a failure. I don't wake up thinking that I'm a failure. It's when
Something goes wrong.
when something goes wrong is when when something goes wrong, that stays in my mind for quite a few days. And then if something happens again,
It's like
that joins.
Yeah.
And it's like they link arms and they just stay in there forever till I kind of figure it out. Which is hard, but...
And that kind of goes back to earlier. That is a common reaction that she has with herself. And it is... Sometimes she expresses that. In my opinion, nobody should ever, and I try really hard to be careful with what I tell you or how I respond when you're saying this, but saying you're being dramatic never helps.
That hurts.
Do not tell somebody with depression you are being dramatic. No.
No. No. No, 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 no. Sorry. Just straight
I
out.
get passionate.
Like a mom. No! I said no!
Protective of you.
I know. But yeah, that hurts too.
Being either agitated or slowed down.
So, that's funny because when I feel like a failure, that's when I get agitated. And that's when my agitation comes out. Like, it's it's a strong agitation.
That's also, like...
Which then goes into my anger, because then I get angry.
Well, yeah, and
I get frustrated.
How we were talking in the very beginning of the video, what are some things that we tend to look for besides the shows and your personality? The being agitated is like a huge red flag. If her, let's say she's a little firecracker and, you know, her fuse tends to be shorter, then I know, like, hey, something's up, you know.
Well, you know, and the great thing is, having it for 20 plus years, I've learned to express it as much as I can. Sometimes, you know, I'm a little off, but, you know, I'll tell her, babe, I'm frustrated.
Well, and sometimes like
I'm annoyed.
Sometimes the firecracker
I'm agitated.
gets flown and explodes. I don't want to say luckily, but I feel like we are very lucky in the sense that not a lot of people have seen your firecracker side. Because I think that's another thing. Like, if you truly want to help somebody, be prepared to see all sides of them. Because I will say that is a hard thing for me to go through. Watching her have all this cooped up energy and emotion, and yes, it can be scary sometimes to witness that having to explode out, but at the same time, I know that I'm safe, and I'm just worried on how I can express to you that you are safe and that it will be okay. And for others wanting to help someone...
Oh, we will get into that. We will get into that. I have a story to tell.
Okay. We have 2 more signs. Okay. Difficulty thinking or concentrating. I get that one.
Yeah, so Ashley will cover that one with her.
And the last one is recurrent thoughts.
Yes!
What was the word you used earlier?
Recurrent thoughts of removing yourself
from yes. Which I feel like...
And taking your...
removal...
life.
Taking your removal...
You can say taking your life.
I think that'll also get flagged.
Well, I said taking... Your. Anyways, so that's a big one for me. Because... unfortunately, I'm constantly thinking of ways, you know, it's weird because I'll be driving around the freeway, mind my own business, you know, driving, and I go over a bridge. I wonder what happened if I just swerved my car off the bridge. It's a thought I always get. Although it's funny because when other people are in the car, I never have that thought. It's always when I'm by myself in my car is when I drive over an overpass, or if I'm driving on an overpass, or if I'm driving over a bridge. I always think to myself, what would happen if I just swerved my car just off the bridge? And then I tell myself, well, you wouldn't be taking your own life. You would be taking the life of other people who could possibly be part of your accident. You could hurt many people who actually do care about you, who are trying to be there for you while you're going through this. And so that's how I kind of get out of it. There are some days where I'm just like, no, I'm not thinking that. Like, I'm just going to keep thinking about what if I swerve off the bridge. So that's one incident that I will constantly think of when I'm by myself in my car. I think that's my main one right now. That's my main one.
That's one of your recurring thoughts. Yeah. We've kind of already covered this one, but is depression the same for everyone?
No, it is not.
Signs
you could have all those symptoms. You could have one of those symptoms. You could have 3 of those symptoms.
You could have the same symptoms, but in different ways. How does depression affect you, and how do you deal with it, and should people ask or say you should probably deal with your depression?
So yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. I hate when people tell me, why don't you just deal with it? Like, why don't you just build a bridge and get over it? Oh yeah, if it was that easy, I'd love to build a bridge and get over it.
Whoa, your voice is high.
No, but seriously, like, if I could, I would love to build a bridge and get over it. Because then I wouldn't have to deal with all this. I wouldn't have to wake up every morning and force myself to start my day. It would be that easy. That's something that also bothers me. Like, why do jobs not take it seriously? Why do jobs not take mental health seriously? Because mental health does play a really big part in jobs.
And how and how well you perform your job.
I mean, not how, yeah, but also, like, how, like, because for me, like, depression really affects my job. Doesn't affect my performance in the job, but it affects how long I stay at a job. Because if it gets to the point where I'm coming home every day and I'm crying because, I can't, my mental, like, I just can't handle it anymore. I just can't handle it anymore. And it sucks. Because there is no such thing as a mental health break. There isn't. There are no jobs that give you a mental health break. Like, you would literally have to go see a therapist, have the therapist write you a note saying you need a mental health break for you to get a mental health break. And some jobs don't even, like, accept it as, a serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that bothers me. There's a lot of mental health issues going on in the world. Everybody goes through.
Especially after last year.
Yes. Especially after last year. Everybody's going through a lot. And for a job to not care is a big no.
Really?
For me. But that's just me. Yeah, everyone's different. That's my little rant for the day.
Okay, well...
Anyway, so I hate when people tell me, just deal with it. Because you can't. You can work with it. You just can't deal with it. My dad used to tell me that all the time. In the beginning. He used to tell me, well, maybe we can cure it. You won't cure it. What are you gonna do? Give me a pill? Like...
Well...
I mean, yes, they're pills, but that doesn't cure it. That just masks it.
It works for some.
And it works for some, but... Which, I will tell all the stories. Should I just tell a story?
Yeah. Well, okay, so before we tell the stories, do you want to, because you started with telling some of your triggers, so the whole, when someone says, deal with it, that's a trigger.
When someone says deal with it, I'm just like, okay, thank you, bye.
When someone asks, are you okay, but they don't, follow through.
When someone says, are you okay, and I say, no, I'm not, and they walk away, and I look at them and I go, seriously? And now I have to go home and talk to my wife. And now she'll have to deal with whatever you were trying to do to me. I think a third would be, for me, it would be using me.
Or when you feel like you're being used.
I don't like being used. And when I'm used, and I realize it eventually, it does not bode well with my depression. Because then I feel like, again, a failure and lost. And what is happening? Oh! When my boundaries are crossed.
That would be number 4.
If my boundaries are crossed, I get agitated. Sometimes I don't know what to do. I start panicking. Inside, you don't see me running outside screaming with my hands up in the air. Not that kind of panic. I just panic on the inside, you know. I do mumble to myself when I panic. A lot, you know. I talk to myself, like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Like, what am I supposed to do right now? Like, I mean, should I do this? Should I do that? Like, boundaries is a big thing. For people with depression, you have to respect it. You really do. Because if you cross that boundary, there will be things that will happen. And sometimes they're not a positive thing. And it's not great. It's not. It sucks.
Because the person with depression whose
boundaries have been crossed.
Can't necessarily control their reaction or communicate properly that their boundaries have been crossed. Just be aware of those situations. Can you think of any other, like, trigger words, trigger phrases, trigger actions?
Let me pray for you.
Now, why specifically is this? Because
as a Christian, obviously, we do say that a lot. Like, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you. When things go wrong, I'll pray for you. Or let's look up a verse in the Bible, that might help you get back on your path and not stray. Obviously, as a Christian, like, that's kind of a boundary kind of thing. Every Christian is different. For me, unless I specifically ask, I don't find that helpful, because I do that on my own. There are times where I pray and I ask God for guidance. I don't need someone else. I mean, I'm not saying I don't need someone else to pray for me, because I know my dad prays for me. I know my mom prays for me. I know my grandma prays for me. It's just, right now, I just need you, person, to be here, mentally, emotionally. Like, I just need you to be here with me, not pray for me.
Religious.
Yeah. Please don't bring religion into it. Because whoever you're talking to may not be religious. So you also have to remember to respect that.
Yeah. Now, going back to earlier with the whole, there's a cure, why don't we find a cure? Do you want to talk about whether there is a true cure or medication, therapy, etc.?
I don't want to say that there isn't a cure.
But it's not a cure per
who
se.
knows who's gonna watch this video? Maybe in 2030 there's a cure? Oh, please. I hope so. Or maybe in, like, 2200? Anyways, my point is, I don't want to say that there is a cure or there isn't a cure, because who knows? But you can take medication. They do have medication for it.
Different types of medication.
There are different types of medication. Please do your research before you accept one.
Have those conversations with your doctor.
Yes, have those conversations with your doctor, therapist, all that stuff. Please do not just, if one is suggested, just say, okay, do your research. Make sure you understand, what they're putting you through, the risks that you're going through, things like that. Because not every medication works for everyone. And I'm telling you this because I've experienced it. So, here's my story. Dun dun. So my freshman year of college, back in 2009, 2008, I went to ASU, Arizona State University. And I was on the West Campus, because that's where they put all the people who are majoring as teachers and criminal justice. And it was my first time living away from home, on my own, in a different state.
In a different country now. That's when you moved back. Oh, yeah,
in a different country, because that's when I moved back. I was living with 2 roommates who apparently, one has never experienced other cultures. So when I first walked into the dorm, her first words were, "Oh my God, I've never met an Asian before." I don't know how to describe them differently. Let's just say girl 1 and girl 2. Girl 1 was the more, I've never met an Asian before, and girl 2 was more cultural because she has traveled to California, and she's, because of dance and stuff, so she's been to a lot of competitions, out of state. Luckily enough, she was rooming with the other girl, and I had my own room to myself. But I think over the couple months that I've been there, I just felt like, even though they were nice, they were friendly, I would also like to point out that both were Christians. And I'm only pointing this out because, like I said, not all Christians understand boundaries. So, living with them, I honestly thought, like, we were friends, we were hanging out, doing things, going shopping. One of them had a car, that's why, we did a lot of grocery shopping together. I have pictures, videos of us hanging out in the dorms, having fun, things like that. But
lots of smiles.
I never, ever felt like I belonged. Ever. Ever, ever. And as the months went by, it eventually slowly got to me. Because I started feeling lost, abandoned, and I started feeling like I just did not belong. Granted, I was an Asian, in Arizona back in 2008. So it was tough. I started getting really depressed. It started getting worse and worse and worse. And eventually down the line, I would go to school, like I would go to my classes, I'd come back to the dorm, and I'd stay in my room. I wouldn't come out. I had my door closed, all that stuff. Every time they asked me, hey, you want to go somewhere? I'd be like, no, thank you. And I would stay in my dorm all day. I wouldn't come out. I think eventually down the line, I was getting worse and worse. I was getting more depressed. I was talking to certain people from my old church.
Which wasn't
helping. Because, one, they were younger than me. They were all still in high school. And
that young.
Yeah. And two, like all the friends that I had before I moved to Taiwan from that church no longer spoke to me. Except for my best friend. And so these were like just the people that I talk to now. And it wasn't helping. Eventually one of my roommates, because I used to draw a lot. So I used to sharpen my pencil with like a blade.
Like traditional old-fashioned artists.
Mm-hmm. So she came in and she saw me sharpening with a blade, and she reported it to school, saying like, oh, she has a knife and she's gonna hurt us, and like she's kind of had that loner personality. She's been like holed up in her bedroom the whole time. She never wants to go anywhere with us, things like that. Mind you, it wasn't a knife, it was a blade, like one of those
You can understand.
Here's my biggest thing. One, she should have just talked to me, because I wasn't doing anything.
Well, and there was no indication beforehand that they were scared of you, so
yeah,
I think that's the biggest.
Anyways, the point is that just out of the blue, one day, I never saw them again. They never came back to the dorms, nothing. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, I'm by myself in the dorm, just me and myself. So I texted girl 2, and I said...
Well, how long was it?
Like the weekend. Because they usually go home for the weekend, but then like they'll come back Sunday. They never did. So I texted girl 2, and I was like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, you guys ever coming back? Like, what's happening? And she straight out was like, oh, yeah, girl 1. Oh, I'm sorry, she didn't tell the school. She told her mom. And then her mom told the school. Yeah, if I remember correctly, I'm sorry. My bad. She told her mom what was going on, and then her mom thought she was in danger, and her mom told the school. And so...
Which, again, sort of understandable, but again, it was handled not in the best of manner.
To be honest, I don't I'm not fully blaming the girls. I blame the school more. And here's why. So her mom told the school, and so I texted girl too, and I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, you guys coming back? Like, I haven't seen you guys. She said, oh, this and this happened. She told her mom told the school. I went, what? Next thing you know, I get a knock on my door. I open the door. Oh, it's an RA. Hi. They're like the ambassador of
for the floor.
For that floor.
Yeah.
I opened the door. I was like, can I help you? She's like, yeah, the school told me I have to hang out with you. What?
Should not start out like that.
Okay. I kind of want to just be by myself. I don't know you. And she's like, well, I'm required to be in here with you. Okay. And she just walked right in. Didn't give me any explanation. She just walked right in. And I was like, okay. Like, so she hung out in the living room. And I went to my room. And right as I was about to close the door, she says, you can't close your door.
With that tone and everything?
I can't what? So, she hung out in the living room. I was in my room. And I had my door open. She literally stayed there till like 9 or 10 at night. And then she left. Next morning, someone new came. Eventually I got one of them to tell me what was going on.
After how long?
I can't remember. By then I was already so agitated and frustrated.
Because you weren't being told anything.
They hadn't told me anything. Notice. They didn't even tell me what was going on. So I called my dad and I was like, Dad, like, I don't know what the hell is going on. Like, why is this happening? Like, So eventually, they told me that I guess the school had notified, it's either they notified my dad or they notified me or something. But they told me that I had to leave the school and go home and see a therapist for like a week and prove that I had to see a therapist, that I had seen a therapist. And then they would let me come back.
It's okay.
And I thought that was like the dumbest thing. Because, yeah, I get it. I have depression. But at the same time, you can't just tell someone that. Like, spring it on them without giving them explanation. Or letting them explain themselves. So I went home, right? I went home and, my dad took me to a therapist. And the therapist, I don't know.
Pixie came to make sure you're okay.
I don't know what was going on in her mind, but the first thing she did was give me medication. So I took medication and I slept for an entire day and I did not get up. Every time I got up, I got nauseous. I didn't eat at all. So my dad was pissed because I literally was in the bedroom like for 24 hours because I was asleep. My parents were scared, like they didn't want to wake me up. So we went back to the therapist and my dad told them, and she's like, oh, the dose is probably too high. So she gave me a lower dose. No. It's not about the dose, it's about the medication. The medication was not working. It was not fitting for me, and she should have given me a different type, not a different dose. Because I went home, I took it, still had the same thing happen. So, anyways, I had proof. I went back to school. Then I went to go see their school therapist. And she was absolutely wonderful. She was a wonderful therapist. Because I told her what happened. And let me tell you, she's their therapist. And I told her what they did to me. And she said, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yes." Do you feel like, I mean, that doesn't help. That doesn't help someone who's going through depression. Because now you're targeting them. That doesn't help. That is the worst way to tell somebody, "Hey, I'm here to help you." And she literally was like, WTF. So for the rest of the school year, I just kept seeing her. And it was nice because that really helped. That was when I was like, therapy works. Because she was a wonderful therapist. She was wonderful. She was great. Like, I absolutely loved her. Therapy worked with her. Anyways, so yeah. Wait, before you continue, I forgot to also bring this up. It didn't help someone with depression, totally made me feel completely lost and that I didn't belong, was when I met my counselor because she had to pick, we had to talk about what classes they were going to put me in. And because I went to an international school for high school, she literally put me in ASL.
ESL.
ESL? ESL, sorry. ASL is sign language. ESL. Yeah, she put me in ESL.
That was when you first went back and started going to school.
Yeah. Why? I went to an American international school, and I only was there for 4 years. For middle and elementary school, I was here in California. So explain to me why she put me in an ESL class. How would that make you feel? Lost? That you don't belong? Confused. Starts making you agitated. Angry. Anyways, continue.
Now, taking into consideration your experience with counselors and therapists and medication and all of that, what would be your suggestion to somebody thinking about reaching out to see a therapist? Like, what would you say is their first step to take, or first few steps?
Don't force yourself to go. Know when it's the right time for you. Because I know for a fact that if it's not the right time for you, it may or may not affect the way you share with your therapist. And just remember, your therapist is there to listen to you, not judge you, but to help you. They're like your guidance. They guide you to success. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to go see a therapist, they're not there to tell you that, you're wrong or there's something wrong with you. They're there to help you figure out how to go about your day-to-day. A lot of times therapists will tell you, meditate. Meditation works if you really put your mind to it. If you don't like meditation, don't force yourself to do meditation, because then you're just forcing yourself to do something which, someone who's depressed, it doesn't work that way. You have to find something you're comfortable with. For me, it's writing. I like to write poems and I like to write things out. Yes, sometimes I do like to meditate. My meditation is more of I like to sit in my comfort space and just close my eyes and try to clear my mind. I don't do the whole focus on your breathing, all that stuff. Because I meditate differently than everybody does. Because that's what works for me. So do what works for you. When you find the thing that works for you, try to hold on to it. Because it really does help.
So then, what would you say that they should consider the first steps to getting themselves mentally healthy?
Admit it?
Admitting that they do need help?
It's like addiction. You know how addiction, people admit they have a problem? In this case, you're not admitting you have a problem. It's just admitting that you need help.
Very similar. Yeah. Just different causes.
Admitting that you can't handle this on your own and you need help. So, last year, October, I went through the worst. I can't say the worst. but I went through really hard depression. Get crying. Honestly, it was rough. Like, I went through the whole, I didn't want to get out. I didn't want to do anything, not even wanting to see people. That's how bad it was. And I honestly thought about killing myself because I felt like that was the only way to escape everything that I was going through. The worst possible thing that I could have, the worst possible thing that I dealt with was the fact that I didn't have anybody there for me except and my parents. And that's the worst possible thing you could possibly have, because you spend your entire life thinking that, oh wait, and my best friend. Anyways, the worst possible thing is because you spend your entire life thinking that you have people, you're surrounded by people who love you and are there for you. And they're not. They're just not. They really aren't. And you do so much for those people, and they're not even there for you. And they did exactly what I did not like the most. Are you okay? And just walked away. So, I spent from October to January of this year dealing with depression off my own. And it's just the worst thing ever, because when you don't have enough people in your corner, it's rough. It's such a bumpy ride. And the funny thing is, people don't get it. Not everyone. Some people don't get it. But yeah. Then I went to group therapy. And it helped. It really did. I came out of it because I tried to do all the exercises that they had us do.
Put in the work.
And I think it also helped because I knew I wasn't the only one going through the same thing, because there were people in that group who also did. And it was like we were strangers, mind you, literally helping each other. Not my friends, strangers. And that made me so angry, because what's the point of friends? Just go to group therapy, talk with strangers. We helped each other, we built each other up, we gave each other guidance. Things that I went through, I helped them with, because they didn't know how to go through it. And things that, I was going through, they were helping me. And, what really, 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 helped me was the fact that I actually helped someone overcome it. And I think that really just brightened everything, because we are a community of people who really just, are trying to figure out how to live our day-to-day lives. And we try to be there for each other as much as we can, as the best as we can. And the funny thing is, we don't even know each other. Never met these people, never seen these people because it was all virtual. So it just comes to show you, you really gotta know who's in your corner, because sometimes, like, the people who you think are in your corner may not be in your corner. I had strangers in my corner. And that's life. And we all go through it, you know? So I think once I did the group therapy and I did the whole circle, that helped. Because that set my boundaries a lot.
I will say, though, my proudest moment was being able to listen to you and watch you glow. I couldn't get all the details because
We're not supposed to.
able to share, but I could see it in her face that there was sincere hope, not just for herself, but in helping someone else. And that sense was being able to help herself as well.
Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, it's tough. It's rough, you know? There's gonna be a lot of ups and downs. You know, I'm not saying therapy works, but for me, therapy worked. So, and I don't take medication. I really just try to work on it myself, to my best ability, with my therapist's guidance.
And that is a huge step, not just for yourself, but for others who are going through depression. The willingness to put in the effort is a huge step. And for those who don't realize just how huge it is, you have to think about it. Depression is just another thing that they have to carry on their shoulders every day. Being willing to work on it is just another effort that they have to make every day on top of everything else.
Whatever else we have to deal with. It's a lot of weight to carry, but we do it. And that's why I say there are times where we go over bumpy roads. But yeah, that's kind of more along the lines of my depression story. It's a few.
Some massive low points that we did not cover, but
Mm-hmm.
in time, when you feel ready,
Mm-hmm.
we may share that.
Yeah.
But for now, for those of you who are looking for help or looking for ways to help others, there are resources. There are resources out there.
And hotlines.
There are hotlines to call, websites to visit.
Also, there are some social influencers that do, you know, kind of help with mental health. Only because they give, like, really good motivational, you know, sayings or things that you can do. So I'll put some of them down in the comments below, so you can check them out yourself. Now remember, it may not work for you, but it works for me. So you can always find your own motivational speakers, or, you know, things, websites, you know, other platforms that may help you get through your day. We'll put them all down in the comments.
Link them all.
And we'll also put them at the end of this video. I know it was a tough subject. Depression is not an easy thing to talk about. Please do not feel like, you know, you can't express it. Please do not try to hide it. It is a very, very tough subject. And once you admit that you need help, don't hesitate to ask for it. Because in the long run, it really does help. So please, do not be afraid.
Find the strength to have those conversations. Take those first steps.
That concludes
This video.
my portion of depression.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Much love to all of you guys.
So, yeah. You guys have a wonderful weekend, wherever you are. And we'll see you next time. Okay, bye!